The objective today is to explain how and why personal data is exchanged for use of free software. So this lesson focuses on the economic and consumer concerns around apps and websites that collect and track data about you in exchange for providing you some sort of free service. Often, the quality of service itself is dependent on having access to data about many people and their behavior. The main takeaway of this lesson is that students should be more informed consumers of the technology around them. They should be able to explain some of the trade-offs between maintaining personal privacy and using innovative software free of cost. And I'm wondering how many of you are already thinking about all the examples you can come up with where you've received something free, maybe a free app, a social media type of account, or a free game, and then ever asked yourself, how am I able to get this thing that is free? Well, if you are not paying for something, typically you are the product and you are being sold to someone else as a package, as a product for them to study and then try to manipulate. Why is so much of the stuff you use online free? Who is paying for it? Many people are unaware of how information about them is being collected and tracked by the technology they use every day. Often you pay for it with your data. The maker of an app can use data they collect from you to make money and provide you with a service or an app for free. This carries some risks to your personal privacy and security, and most companies make great efforts to balance the trade-offs between providing you with useful services and protecting your privacy. But the issue can be tricky and raise confounding ethical dilemmas. You see the comic here where there's a data collection list salesman, and it says cheap because it is pretty easy to collect such data. As you can see in the newspapers here, social security numbers, driver's licenses, home ownerships. There is so much data about people, and I think the older you get, the more you'll understand all the types of data points that make up a person. Many consumers are unaware or lack a sophisticated understanding of how information about us is being collected and tracked by the technology we use every day. This issue goes beyond instances when data is stolen from companies or organizations we willingly provide to it. So instead, using computational tools, our movements through the physical and virtual world are being automatically tracked, stored, and analyzed. Cookies in our browsers keep a record of our movements on the internet. Companies trade access to free tools and apps for the rights to track the data we upload to them. My think, rate, share here is what are cookies? I said what they are inside the paragraph. And then a follow-up question, do you think we should allow companies to make this deal with consumers, especially if the consumer is maybe ignorant of their rights to privacy? I'm really curious to see how you answer that second question, because then you can make comparisons to other things in the world. Think about all the times that the government does step in and tell a company whether they can or cannot do something. The government has stepped in and told cigarette manufacturers that they cannot have ads on television about smoking cigarettes just because they think the ignorant, maybe youth of America will look at such commercials and then buy something or participate in something that is unhealthy for their health. So is this similar to such an example? However you want to take this question, I'm definitely curious to read your answers. Advertisers develop personalized profiles of potential customers to better target advertising. Governments monitor traffic across the internet at scales unimaginable without the use of computers. Yet we live in a world that increasingly relies on these digital tools, services, and products. Most companies make great efforts to balance the trade-offs between utility and privacy, but the issues can be tricky and raise confounding ethical dilemmas. We must now grapple with the question of just how much we value our privacy and whether it is even possible to maintain in a digitized world. Your think, right, share here, should we just give up on privacy? Why or why not? So here I have a list of some websites or products that have apps that I want you to think about, and then just pick 5 of these and tell me what type of data they know about you or they are collecting about you. So for example, now that I use Netflix, this company, they know I love sci-fi and superhero movies and shows. So that's the type of data they know about me now. And thus, this is the type of data that they can now sell to other companies. If this stuff is free, but these companies make a lot of money, then it stands to reason that we are paying for these services with our data, because that's the only thing we're giving them in return for the service. Think right share here, what is the monetary value of your personal data? Take a guess. How much do you think a company like Snapchat can make from you viewing an ad? And if you want to go off on a little tangent here, do more research on the GDPR. In this lesson, I'm just trying to focus on the how and why personal data is exchanged for free software. So when you use most apps, websites, and social networks, they are collecting information about you in exchange for the service, right? Like connecting with your friends and sharing photos. These are all things that they can make money off of. Sometimes the service itself, like GPS, needs to track you just to be a useful app. Other times, the data collected is useful to the company for making money. Most of the companies that do track your data work hard to balance the trade-offs between providing you with a service for free and the inherent risks such data collection poses to your personal privacy and security. But what do they actually collect, and how do they use that data? So choose an app, website, or other online service you're familiar with to research their privacy policy. The easiest way to find a data policy, if it exists, is to search for the company's name, followed by the terms data policy or privacy policy. So here you're going to write down the website you've chosen, and what you need to do is choose any of the following questions to answer about your website's policy. Feel free to just write down your observations as well. So what kinds of data are being collected, and how many different kinds of data? What service or feature is enabled by the data they are collecting, and why are they collecting it in the first place? Who else is given access to that data, and how are they using it? So for my example, I found ESPN's, a website I go to often. I found their policy, and it's interesting to see they have a beginning paragraph that reads something like this. The internet contains a wealth of information. Unfortunately, may also contain personal details about you that you don't want everyone to know. And then it'll go on and talk a little bit about the philosophy of privacy. What I found interesting is there's an opting out portion here. There's policies for kids. Those are individuals 13 years of age and younger. They detail how they use IP addresses. And again, how they're using cookies. And it's nice of them to explain to you what are cookies. So as you can see here, I'm scrolling quite a bit, so there's quite a bit here. So you take that portion of the lesson as far as you would like. To wrap up here, though, I'm just curious, what's your temperature on data collection now? Are you leaning more towards privacy? Or the same or less? Are you less concerned about privacy? I kind of doubt anybody would be in that category, but if you are, just please explain to me, like justify your temperature, justify what you're thinking in terms of privacy now after this lesson and the lesson before it. So since it's the end of the lesson, go ahead and choose one of these profile attributes to fill into the blank and justify why you're thinking that today's lesson was one of these things. And for your DOL here, would you install this free app? So the app says Brightest Flashlight Free, version 2.4.2. And what can it access? Well, it can access your location, approximate location. But when you are connected to GPS, or when you're outside and the GPS locator is connected, then they can see your precise location. You'll see here that also using the combination of GPS and network will give them that information. All you have to do is justify. You can still say you would want it. Just justify whichever choice you make.